everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I just wanted to talk about running a body positive business. My aerobics company, Fat Kid Dance Party, turns 4 years old on March 2nd. I count the birthday as the very first time I taught a class open to the public. I do want to say I did teach a class the week before that just as like a freebie, let me try this out, because I had never taught aerobics before I started teaching Fat Kid Dance Party. But I also want to say that even though my company is 4 years old, I've actually been working hard to make my living in the body positive space for like 20 years. 19 years, we'll say 19 years. And so it's taken me 19 years to become an overnight success. And honestly, what even is success, right? Like, I think that's something I've learned so much on this journey. And I just want to share with you what I've learned in case anything that has come across my plate can be helpful to you. So when I started this, when I endeavored this career, I was in law school and I was performing drag. So this is a totally different, not that different from aerobics, to be honest, but it was a different life, and I was performing drag. And back then, I felt like when I broke even on my costumes, like, because I was performing a lot, and we would do in our shows, our troupe would do we'd each have like 5 acts we were in. Like, we'd be in group acts and solo acts and change a lot. It's how I learned to do fancy eye makeup and lashes in like 2.5 seconds. Like, this whole face of makeup took me 5 minutes, and and it's just part of like being in drag and doing the thing and making it work. I learned a lot about production. I learned a lot about working with people. I learned a lot about creating with people. I didn't do it elegantly at the time, but that's kind of how, I mean, that's how you learn, right? You learn by flopping a few times. Failure is really the tuition of success in entrepreneurship. So at that time, I wasn't yet identifying as body positive. I didn't even know, I don't think anyone was using that buzzword in 2002. But I had a friend tell me that what I was doing was fat activism. And I was like, what's fat activism? And so she invited me, well, the board of this Fat and Queer conference invited the whole troupe to perform. And there I got to meet fat activists from all over the world who were doing what they could do in their sphere to help influence the world to become more size accepting. Body liberation came to me as a word. I think it might have been like around 2008. Marilyn Wan taught it to me. She is the author of the book Fat ? So ! And she kind of gave me that language. So that's really what I use for the activism I do. I truly believe that all bodies are liberated when fat bodies are liberated. But of course, the intersection of all of our identities comes through. And so, of course, we're talking ability, age, race, gender, class, neurodivergence, all of that kind of intersects on the body, right? So I've learned more and more about like who is left behind, just again and again in my career. So from drag, I moved into, and then I was like a practicing lawyer doing drag on the side, and doing readings. I was doing a lot of writing at the time. I had a blog, still have that blog, just haven't written it in a while. So I started doing my blog, and then I started doing a podcast when my drag troupe dissolved and I wasn't having like an outlet for performance, and I still had the energy and I wanted to help people feel good in their bodies, right? Like my friend, her point of me being a fat activist de facto by being a fat person on stage, is I think true, because anytime someone sees someone who looks like them doing something they didn't think they were allowed to do, like be on stage or take up space or live their dreams, right? That is enabling them, right? They see themselves reflected in you, and that's like opening up possibility for you. At the end of every Fat Kid Dance Party class, I thank the ancestors, because I had to have people teach me to not be ashamed of the things that made me different in order to feel like I could stand in them and own who I was and what I was meant to bring, right? And at that time, I don't think I was ready to take on teaching aerobics, but it just kind of kept unfolding to me. So when I was doing my podcast, I was working full-time as a lawyer, and full-time as a lawyer for me was like 60 to 80 hours a week. I was on the road some mornings at 7 a.m. and out until 9 p.m., right? But I would still, man, I had like no sleep at the time. When I got laid off from that job in 2008, I learned what a full night's sleep felt like. It's good. It's good. Being well rested is a nice life. And I just, kept trying to figure this out, right? So I was doing on the side when the performance was kind of dropping off. I started doing a podcast, which was heavily edited. I basically did instead, now the podcast I do now is like me sitting down having a conversation, editing basically nothing. And it's minimum viable work in order to get it out. I wish I had a podcast producer. I wish it had a theme song. There's a lot of things that I would love to level up in, but I don't need it in order to have a good podcast. And at the time, I think it was self-image stuff and also a desire to deliver a really great product. So I would spend like 60 hours editing. I had lots of help too. I had friends who were correspondents, and I had lots of interviews every episode. It was a big production. And I think it was good, but like it was also just like so much resources that I just didn't have to keep it up. But I kept thinking, I was like, oh, if only I can get advertisers, if only if I could get this to be monetized. Monetizing a podcast is actually a lot harder than you think. And there's a lot of people out there with lots of ads telling you they can tell you the hacks and whatnot. But I'll say I think the podcasts ultimately work best as a marketing tool when you are just delivering value to people and then you have a product to sell. So I vowed to myself when I started this podcast, from having learned all that I learned the first time, when I did this podcast, I was just like, this is going to be what I use to advertise my Patreon page. Because the only reason I can afford to do this podcast is because I have Patreon supporters. So I was like, let's just make this the flow, right? So it can feel really hard to ask for help. I've been working on this for well over a decade, consciously being like, I think I have trouble asking for help. I'm an only child. I'm a Capricorn. If you look at my mom, she's wildly independent. She taught me how to be independent. And it was hard for me to learn that I needed to ask for help in order to do great things. But I started recognizing, wow, like anytime I was doing great things in my life, it's because I had a team of people working with me to help level me up, right? So in drag, we were like performing once or twice a week and rehearsing twice a week. Like that's 4 nights with a group of friends every week. That's a lot of influence that they have in your life. And you're really the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so at that time, 5 people I spent the most time with were performing. So that's what I was doing, even though I was still in law school and then practicing law. Isn't that fun? And then, okay, so as the podcast was kind of like wearing me down, I didn't have my editor anymore. I was really kind of struggling to keep it up. I was producing a lot of events. So I was kind of like, I fell in with another group of amazing community organizers called the Femme Family in New York City. I think we were really live and doing stuff for like 2 or 3 years, not a super long time, but it was really great to get to create with those femmes because we all just kind of created the culture we wanted to see. We did readings, we did parties, we were in the Pride Parade. We were just like out there bringing femme visibility and femme community, and had a really great time. But it was also a lot of work. It's a lot of work to sustain community organizing. And eventually that kind of like a lot of the core organizers moved to San Francisco. Funny, it was like 3 of them, one after another. And out of 10, that's a lot of people. And then people just didn't have the same energy for it. And so that kind of petered off. And as that was petering off, I used that confidence I had gained by working with them to start making my own parties. I was like, well, I know how this goes now. And I have relationships with these clubs. Stonewall Inn, very specifically, I think was like a life career highlight, was getting to produce things there. I've produced, I think in some, maybe like 15 shows there over the years. And I am so grateful that I was able to do that when I lived in New York. The Stonewall Inn is the home of Pride. It's where our first uprising, or not our first uprising, but the most well-known uprising of LGBTQ folks, primarily led by black and brown trans women. Anyway, so performing there was amazing. But of course, every like gig in New York comes with accessibility issues. Like, Stonewall, where you perform, is up a flight of stairs. There's no elevator for people. So just it became a little frustrating doing that, but I managed to find this amazing dive bar / club called Sugarland in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. When I first started, so I would go to parties there, and then the management actually just reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to throw a party here? You got a Thursday night free every month? And I was like, yeah, actually. So I had just gotten that confidence, and I was like, okay, so what if I threw a body positive queer nightlife party, right? Like it always seemed natural to me to like want to create a body positive space in that scene. And so I just did it. I made flyers. They were I made sure that I called it Rebel Cupcake because well, I always knew, and secretly in my head, I was like, if I ever have a monthly party, I want to call it Rebel Cupcake, because the song Rebel Girl by Bikini Kill was always what I wanted to level up into. I wanted to be that person who like had that confidence and had that wardrobe and had that like aesthetic that just freed other people, right? Just by virtue of being myself, I wanted to liberate other people. Um, and also, like, it sounds fun. And everyone asked me when I was first flyering for that party, will there be cupcakes? So then I said yes. And then I started baking cupcakes. And I just want to tell you, like, throwing a whole party is a lot of energy. It's a lot of production work, a ton of marketing. There's always been everything I've done. There's always been more marketing required of me than I even had capacity to do. And so doing that flyering, then I started baking my own cupcakes for the party, which was just an extra ton of work. But as I was continuing to move that party forward, it launched on International No Diet Day, May 6th in 2010. And as I kept doing that party, I just kept like putting on my heart. I'm like, oh, I wish that someone would show up and bake these cupcakes for me. And then my friend Morgan, she's so amazing. She's a femme, she's so beautiful, and she's a classically trained chef, which is what she's doing now. She wasn't doing that at the time for work. So it was like a fun, creative outlet for her to just make on theme cupcakes. She would do a gluten-free version and a regular version. But I kind of had to write it out for a while, like doing my own thing until I got the help I needed, right? But eventually it came, and it came in such a beautiful way. I could never have predicted how good it would be. And I also would produce a show, because part of convening space, I think, is setting a tone. And so like I wanted it to not just be body positive in name. I wanted to actually have acts that represented a diverse array of backgrounds, and a diverse array of art forms. I had burlesque, drag, spoken word. One time there was a fire play demo. I had readings. I had I can't even, I'm sure there was a circus performer at some point. Like a belly dance, like I did so many things because I know so many talented people, and it was really fun to have like a home for people to tour through, especially on a Thursday night, which is not a highly competitive nightlife night. And I loved that party, and I did really wild themes. And the whole time I was doing it, I was also practicing law, because even though I got laid off from my job in 2008, I ended up hanging my own shingle, which just means I open a law firm out of my bedroom. And because like all my client interaction was on the phone or in person at closings, which I didn't need to host. So I was like, let's cut out the middleman. I was able to basically work about 10 hours a week, and make enough money to pay my rent, and then spent like 100 hours a week doing my art and activism. I did the things that were on my heart to serve. And just really, really hoping that at some point my body positive work and performance was going to pay my bills. And I'll say March 23rd, not March, what was it? I think it was like, it might have been March 2013. I think it was. It was like this month where I had a college gig where I was performing, and I had another gig, and they were just lucrative enough that paid all of my life expenses from my art that one month. And that felt like a huge milestone. So I went from hoping that my art would pay for itself to eventually like Rebel Cupcake would also consistently pay one of my student loan bills. It was $159 a month. That's usually about what I would make, because I would pay all the performers, pay the cupcakes, pay all the things, and it's Thursday, so it wasn't like a well-trafficked party. So I really needed and wanted it to make money, even though I think I got so much more out of it emotionally and spiritually, and just honestly learning how to do what I did really well, that the paycheck didn't matter, right? And then when I moved to LA, I was like, am I still gonna do nightlife? I don't know. I had kind of weaned off Rebel Cupcake because Sugarland. When in 2010, when you would go to Sugarland, it was in a very empty part of Williamsburg. It was all warehouses, and it's one of those areas of town where it's so quiet, you stay on alert, right? Like just in terms of like your own safety. And then then the hipsters came in. There were literally two apartment buildings that came up right next to Sugarland. So Sugarland's like a two-story dive bar. We used to be able to go outside on the deck, and then the deck got closed down because of the apartment buildings that came up. And it was really funny. I knew the end was coming. I knew Sugarland was closing, because there's just no way you're going to sustain like that level of real estate, right? So Sugarland did close down right around when my partner got breast cancer, and so we were going through that. So it was an easy way to shelve that thing that I was doing, because I didn't really have a venue to do it in. I missed it, but I knew something was coming in its place. And then when I moved to LA and I started taking aerobics classes, I just started recognizing I'm like, there's so they were supposed to be all levels, and I was like, this is not an all levels class. I'm a pretty fit person, and if I'm huffing and puffing, you're not actually making space for people to have different endurance levels. And so I was like, okay, well, I kind of know like what I need to do to throw a fun party. And I know dance moves from being a drag performer. So I was like, huh, maybe I'll try. And so I got certified as an aerobics instructor, threw my hat in the ring, started before I was ready, long before I was ready. I would have taken a couple more months actually if it was up to me. But my boss at the time who was hosting where I was teaching the class was strong with me needing to start when I started. So I started, and I'm glad because I'm glad my class is a Pisces. It also like really took off right away. And I will say like not necessarily in terms of attendance, but notoriety. I ended up this is my outfit. I'm wearing this. I thought about dressing up cute and businesslike for this video, but I just wanted to give value, and I literally just taught my class out here in my front yard. I have a dance floor in my front yard because I just make it work. But I got this gig with Torrid to like do one of their launches. They didn't pay me, but they gave me a lot of free workout clothes, which I needed. And I got to teach aerobics in front of a giant Ferris wheel in Irvine, California. It was like it's truly a memory I'll have forever, and I'm so glad I actually paid a photographer to come and take pictures of that so that I could have that. Because and I'll say that was the best investment. Two of my best investments so far at Factory Dance Party were photos. I have paid several photographers to come and take pictures of my classes. I really do see at some point some celebration of Factory Dance Party that has photos from those great photographers from throughout this time and all the different times that I've taught this class. And so it was funny because like I kind of thought, just doing the workout. So then I produced the workout video with a GoFundMe. There was a video that went viral about my class, and it kind of taught me, okay, there might be a market for this. So I did a GoFundMe to create a thing. And I really have just been like having to do the emotional work of continuing persisting something for a long time, right? Like this class has had so many iterations. I started teaching in LA at a gym, and then I started teaching at the gym, and then at a store, and then it was just at the store, and then it was the store in the park, and then the store wasn't available for me anymore. So then it was just the park, and things were kind of petering out, and I was in myself, in my life, because life is going to life at you no matter what, right? Like in your pursuit of success and greatness, life will come over and knock you over so many times. And that Cardi B song, Knock Me Down 9 Times, I Get Up 10, I had to listen to that song. I have a playlist of songs I need to listen to. I have a lot of emotional work I've had to do to persevere and persist. 4 years in this class feels like 10. And I have had so many iterations, but now I'm teaching. I moved up here. I live in the middle of nowhere in the forest in Washington State. And then the pandemic happened. This all like happened. It was almost foretold, I think. And I was getting my life falling apart so that I could put it together on Zoom. And now I teach on Zoom. I teach my online on-demand aerobics classes. When I moved up here, I really wanted to focus on my online offerings, and then I was going to keep touring because that's what I've been doing. I was also like my friend McKay was pointing out, that's early in an aerobics class if you're touring by year 2. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of true. It was like year 1. I wasn't even a year old in this class before I started touring it. I toured it first in Seattle and then lots of other places. So I just feel so lucky and blessed to keep this going. Patreon, honestly, when I was trying to figure out how to like offer it digitally to people, I could have built out a membership platform on a website, but then I'm responsible for all of that. And when you allow Patreon to have your like 5% cut or whatever, they do everything. Like they do everything on the back end. I obviously give Patreon a cut, and I also pay Vimeo, not a small amount of money per year. I think it's a couple $100 per year to host my videos, but that's been really good too because now I have a history, right, or herstory of everything I've done. So yeah, I hope that helps, like knowing my journey. I wrote down some notes and I didn't even look at them. But this is like, it's just interesting because like I'm like celebrating 4 years doing this thing because I think it's super important to like pause and celebrate the milestones. But then also I'm really just acknowledging how much of my life I had to live before I figured out the thing I feel I was meant to do. And also just in that process of like my business coming up and going down, like touring was great until it started really losing money. I lost a lot of money at the end of 2018 from tour classes that just didn't sell out. And it was the way I was touring was very expensive because I would just go for the weekend and come back instead of just like getting in a car and driving around the country, you know? So I was hoping to do it a little different last year in 2020. Obviously, no one toured in 2020. And so it's like me and everybody else not touring right now, which is fine. But truly, I think like I couldn't have done anything I've done without the help of so many people. There have been so many people who have like literally pitched in, literally delivered above and beyond, who have been cheerleaders, honestly, emotionally supportive, and all of those things. And I just couldn't have done it without them. And asking for help is a sign of strength, and asking for help requires persistence and being willing to hear a no. If you're not hearing no, you're not asking enough. And my favorite marketing advice that I finally figured out how to use is just consistently showing up for your people because you're developing trust, and being willing to say the same thing like a million times, and also just like allowing for connections. So recently, like I've done something on the Fact Dance Party Instagram where now I'm doing like uh, IG stories just with announcements and connection and just letting people know who I am, right? Like, I think I take it very sacred, the role of movement instructor, because when people are moving, they're very vulnerable. And when you have a teacher who's shouting at you about a beach body, I sure hope that teacher is telling you that everybody is a beach body and everybody that shows up at the beach is worthy of love, right? And so this is technically my body positive business. I was like, I tried so hard for so many years to do that. And I will say, like, I am hitting that. Like, I live off of this. I really had to reduce my lifestyle in order to keep this going. And my rent is like $400 a month. I live in a trailer in the woods in the winter. It's cold here. I dance on a foam floor in my front yard because I can't dance in there very well. So, but you make it work, right? Like you figure out sometimes your dream needs you to get a job. Sometimes your dream needs you to get a gig. Sometimes your dream needs you to just like hold in there and be patient. Sometimes your dream needs you to see a therapist. I have to say, like I couldn't have made it through I would quit this in the last 2 years if I hadn't gotten a therapist. So I needed the support. It's really lonely to be an entrepreneur. It's really lonely to stick to a thing. It's really lonely to be weird and not have people weird with you. But I just want to say these are two things that really just lit me up today. Number one, yesterday I just announced a cat theme. I haven't done a theme class on Zoom yet. And I used to do theme classes for Facky Dance Party every now and again. So I just said, hey, wear your cat stuff. And then today, like over half of the class was wearing cat ears. We had someone in paws. Like it was just really sweet. And then in the self-care check-in after class, where I asked people to tell me about their self-care wins, two people told me that they used moves they do in class as I had instructed to them to like vibe them up for other things that mattered in their lives, right? And like that to me, that is my success, is when I can help someone live a better life because of things I help them learn. That to me, that is success. It's not about the money. It's not been about the money for the last couple of years. It has not been about the money. This has always been really my heart work and how to deliver this and how to deliver this freedom to people, because I think everyone deserves to be free in their bodies and their minds. And Fact Dance Party is as much about minds as it's about bodies. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing on the YouTubes. I appreciate it. I love that I can be a YouTube creator and not edit the heck out of my videos and just be here, because something I really learned as an entrepreneur is you have to be good at everything. You don't have to be great at everything, but you have to be good at pretty much everything that needs to happen for your business and be great at that thing you deliver, right? I'm great at aerobics. I'm not perfect, and I think perfection is not the thing we're aiming for. I'm great at aerobics. I love it. I innovate all the time. I'm always learning new things so that I can bring to the dance floor. I can't wait. For me, like my foresight into this business is just to get enough momentum going so that I can pay someone to do the things that aren't me teaching aerobics, and then keep it moving from there, right? So, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Right now, I'm just grateful to be influencing people's lives and living my dreams and living a fully aligned life where I am Bevin in every room I walk into. And even though I felt super weird being like, hey, everybody, be cats for Zoom, I really was like, I was vulnerable about it. I felt afraid. And then so many cats showing up just delighted me. And I was so glad I did it. Too weird for some, just right for others. Be your weird, be exactly who you are. You can't create Facky Dance Party. You're gonna have to create whatever is on your heart to bring to the world, whether that's, I don't know. Everyone's purpose is different. I think some people's purpose is to raise awesome kids. I think some people's purpose is to like work in government and help things get better. And some people it's direct service work with clients or teaching or whatever, right? But you have a thing that's your purpose, and that's the thing that I think so often, like I just was told I should be a lawyer. That's the only reason I was a lawyer, is because people said I would be good at it. So I don't think that's a great reason to go to law school. And I still have all that debt. You know what I mean? Even though I paid off that private loan that I could pay with Cupcake, still the same amount of debt because of compound interest. So anyway, my hope is someday I pay it all off, but my dream is already here. Today is heaven on earth. Every day is heaven on earth, when I'm just being in appreciation for all that has come. So I'm so grateful. If you've ever taken a Fat Kid Dance Party class, thank you. This is definitely all because of you, because without you, it's just me doing aerobics by myself, and I don't need to wear makeup for that. But anyway, I love doing this work, and I hope that if you have a body positive business on your heart, you go for it. And just know that like networking is about making friends. It's not about getting something. I approach every conversation with how can I add value to this person? And you know, wherever you like make connections, those pay off later in life. They always do. And you're always like doing stuff that requires help from other people. And I think the help comes, especially when you're doing exactly what's on your heart and how you feel called to serve. I know this was a long one. Thanks for hanging in there. Bye, everybody.